up guys, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be telling you guys the story about getting kicked out of college and having a full-on panic attack. So basically I went to a two-year college first. I went to junior college for my freshman and sophomore years of college, and basically how you transfer from a junior college to a regular four-year university, if you have not done this yet, is you have to fill out applications for college like a year, 9 months in advance, so quite a long time in advance. So you have to pick out your colleges, kind of your freshman year. You're already starting to look at colleges, you're already like figuring out what the application requirements are, you're getting all your stuff set up and ready to send over. So I had done that. I'd figured out all these colleges, I'd sent in all my applications, and there was this one college that came up about a month before school started, and I hadn't decided yet. I'd been accepted by a few universities. I was going for pre-med, so I had 2 years left of my pre-med and then med school after that. So I was looking for programs that were going to be really good for that, and I wanted to do, you know, a program that had an emphasis on preparing you for doing international medical work and things like that. And so I had scoured all these different programs and came up with one very last minute. I'm talking a month before school started, and like I said, normally it is like 9 months to a year is when you apply for these programs beforehand. So literally like a month before school starts, I find this school and I apply. This whole thing was during a school break, so I was not expecting to actually get into school or anything like that, but the program was exactly what I wanted. It even had a semester that you spent overseas doing medical work so that you could like be prepared to enter the world of doing international medicine. It was perfect. And so I was like really hopeful. I was so sad for one thing that I hadn't found the program sooner in the year, and I was also really hopeful that somebody would somehow see my application and let me in. And so I applied and I submitted all my paperwork in. I got it all sent in. I got a phone call back from the school on a Friday, and school for them was starting not the following Monday, but the following Monday, so in 10 days. It was starting super soon. I got a phone call from the vice president, and he was like, you know, the school's closed right now, so I get emergency applications that get sent to me by admissions that they think people who would do really well here, and we don't go over that many, we don't get that many in this late in the game, but we want to extend an invitation for you to come out and go to school with us. Now, because it is so last minute, all of our offices are basically closed, you're going to have to do everything when you get here. Like, we're admitting you, but you're not going to get anything officially on paper until you get here, telling you, like, all the stuff. So he basically told me what you're going to do is you're going to drive here, or fly, whatever, and you're going to get in the dorms on, like, Friday or Sunday or Saturday, whatever, and then Sunday at 10 o'clock, you're going to go and register for all your classes. And the dorm room, you're just going to put your dorm room on a tab for the weekend, and so then that will get added to your like class bills when you get everything sorted when you get here. And I was like, perfect, that sounds great, sounds amazing. I was really like nervous, but because I was talking to him, it sounded like a perfect fit. It was the school I actually felt really compelled to go to when I found it online. I was like, yes, I'll come. Roll out the bandwagon, I'm on my way. So I got off the phone with him and I immediately got back on the phone with one of my good friends, and I was like, hey, what do you think about taking a trip, and I'll pay for your flight back home. And the next day I was talking to my sister and she was also down, so they both decided kind of over the next few days that they were down to go. So I had my friend and my sister driving across the country with me on this super last minute trip. I live in the West Coast and this school was on the East Coast, and I had to be there in literally like a week. So I packed up my car like the day that I got off the phone with this guy, and I left enough room for my sister and my friend, and we drove, we started driving across the country on like a Monday, and we drove across the country, and we hit all the fun things. We went to national parks, we hit a bunch of like monuments and like big towns that are really famous and popular, and let me tell you, most of the middle of the United States is very empty feeling, at least driving through it. I'm sure some of y'all got great places that you're living in, but let me tell you, some of those highways have nothing on them. So we drove, we got there on a Thursday, I believe it was, and we spent the next, like the weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, kind of just like chilling, checking out the campus, checking out the city. It was really great. We ate a lot, we got real fat. We went to, you know, different events. We did a lot of fun things. It was going really good. I was really excited about school. I was really excited to start school. I was pumped about school, and Sunday came and they had to fly out at 6 in the morning. So we got in my car and I drove them to the airport. It was very sad, and they flew away, and it was like their flight was like 8 or something, but like you have to be there early and all that stuff. So we got them on their flight and on their way, and I drove back to school, and I was feeling kind of like down because I realized on my drive that I didn't know anybody like anybody at the school. I'd only ever talked to the vice principal, and I didn't have any friends. I didn't have any acquaintances. I didn't have a I didn't have a roommate for my dorm room because they had enough room I could have my own, and I was like, yes. So I really didn't have any like connections at school, and I started feeling really, really like kind of down about it, but also still like, it'll be fine. I got back to school at about 8 o'clock because that was around when their flight left, and I get this phone call as I'm pulling into park, and it is the area code for the city that the school's in. So I pick it up thinking that it is somebody with the school, probably going to give me some more information on how to get everything like straightened out, because when I talked to the principal, the vice principal, about going to school here, he'd kind of told me, he'd made it sound like everything would be worked out and people would be helping me and things like that. And the whole time that I'd been there thus far, from Thursday to Sunday morning, I hadn't really talked to anybody. I told the lady at the dorm, like, what he'd told me, that, you know, he's admitting me late and to put me on a tab and we would figure it out after. And she'd had things like that happen before, so she was like, okay, and she, like, did it. She had to take all my info down, but we made it work. And so I'm just thinking this is somebody calling to be, like, a helpful, nice person. But I get the phone call, I pick it up, and it is the admissions department. And they are like, hey, we have been informed that you're back on campus. And I was like, yeah, I just got here. And they're like, thinking that they meant that I had pulled in, like, somehow people were spying on me. I don't know. That was what I thought, though. I was like, how did they know? Like, I just pulled back on the campus. But I was like, yeah, I just pulled back in. Or I just got here. And she was like, so we need you to be off campus by noon. And I was like, what do you mean? And you need me to be off campus by noon? And she's like, well, you're kicked out. You've been kicked out of school. You know, she said it very professionally, like, you've been kicked out of the university for, and apparently she was telling me I was kicked out for violating the moral code and because my financial aid had not cleared. And I was like, but I haven't done my financial aid yet. None of that stuff's set up. I just got here. And she's like, well, you're being kicked out for violating the moral code and not having your financial aid cleared. She just kept repeating the same things. And I was like, so confused at this point, because I was like, how did I violate a moral code? Like, what did I do that was, was it because I had friends and my sister in my room and they're not, like, student? Like, I didn't know what was going on. So, then I kind of started panicking a little bit, because she basically was like, okay, bye, and hung up, and I was just sitting there like, I have to be out of my room by noon, what? So I was sitting there kind of starting to panic, because I was like, I'm kicked out of school. My mom was in school at the time to be a teacher, so my family didn't really have money at the time, and I knew I couldn't, like, I was completely on my own financially before this, and I knew that I couldn't ask my mom for money, and even if I was going to ask my mom for money, she didn't have money. I had used my last money getting everything for this college, like, done and sent there. I had like $50, and this lady's telling me I'm kicked out as of noon. I literally felt like I didn't have another option. I felt like I was completely screwed at this point. Like, I have option number one, which is to live in my car and be a homeless person on the opposite side of the country, not knowing anybody, or option number two is to drive 50 miles worth back towards my home into the middle of nowhere and then live in my car on the side of the road where I didn't know anybody. Because even if I stayed there and got a job, like, for one thing, who's going to hire you when you don't have a place to live? Like, you don't have an address. And number two, even if you get hired, you then have to start paying for rent. And I didn't want to live here permanently. I was just going to school here because it was a good school. It was a very stressful feeling in my brain. And probably it was a bit irrational as well. But I literally started having, like, I didn't know what a panic attack was at the time, but I started, like, feeling like I couldn't breathe and getting, like, really, really panicky. So then I was like, you know what, I have to call my mom and tell her, because she's going to call and ask, like, what's going on. And so I called my mom, and sometimes, like, you just need to talk to somebody and, like, reason things out. So I was like, I'm calling my mom. So I called my mom, my poor mom. It was, like, literally 5 o'clock in the morning. So she just thought for some reason that my friend and my sister missed their flight or something. Like, that was her thought pattern. When I called and she picked up, she's like, oh, did they miss their flight? I was like, no, it's fine. Well, it's not fine, but they're fine. So, and then I told her this whole situation. I was like, yeah, and as I'm telling her this, I was getting super emotional. I, like, started crying a little bit, like, little tears, and then it was, like, turned into full-on sobbing. And at one point, I was just like, I gotta go. And I hung up, and I was, like, unable to breathe because I was so panicked and freaked out over the whole situation. I was like, okay, my mom is in school. She doesn't have the money to pay for me to get home. I mean, she didn't say that. I think she would literally sell the skin off her skin to get me back home. That's not an expression. But I was like, okay, what am I going to do? You know, I'm not going to ask her to do that. And I didn't want her to even be put in a situation where she felt like she had to do that or wanted to do that. But my mom is such a voice of reason sometimes. Sometimes she's illogical, but sometimes she's a voice of reason. She told me, go to the admissions office and talk to them in person and try to figure out what the moral code violation is and ask to see a financial aid counselor and go over your financial aid stuff because it should have cleared. At the time, I was so irrational. I was just like, it's not gonna work. I'm just gonna get kicked out of school. Because, you know, like, it's easy to be irrational sometimes. But, and literally, I was sitting in my car in a very busy parking lot, so everybody, I felt like, was looking at me and watching me, which was making me panic even more. I finally, like, calmed down, and I went to the admissions office when it opened at 10. I hadn't packed my room either. I just couldn't bring myself to do it. I was like, I can't do it. If I am getting kicked out, then I get kicked out, whatever. But I went to the admissions office, and I went up to the counter, and I asked the receptionist. I was like, I got a phone call. It was this and this. And I told her the whole situation, and she's like, yeah, I was the one that called you, and yes, you've been kicked out for violating the moral code. I was like, I understand what I've been kicked out for. I don't really understand what the moral code is and how I violated it. And she told me, well, when you were here last year, and I was like, hold up, when I was here last year? And she's like, yes, when you were here last year. And I was like, I've never been here before. And she was like, what do you mean you've never been here before? Apparently there was somebody else with a similar name, and our files had been merged together. And this person, the year before, had violated the moral code, which apparently the moral code, I did not know what this was, but eventually I had to sign one myself when I was, like, doing the paperwork for the school. The moral code is something you sign agreeing to certain policies, but they hold you to them on more of a moral basis than an actual, like, law basis. Like, there's not... So, for instance, if you're 21, you can legally drink, right? But if you sign a moral code saying that you won't drink on campus, then they're holding you to kind of your morals. Your own morals will keep you from drinking on campus, even though you legally can do it. Does that make sense? So apparently whoever this was had violated the moral code, and they had done something that was on the giant list that we had to sign saying we wouldn't do it. It was a private school, so they can kind of put whatever they want on there. But so I got that straightened out, thank goodness, because literally I thought that I was just gonna have to become a homeless beggar and be stuck on the side. I was being irrational, let's be honest, because I know people would have figured something out. But then I went up to financial aid and we got that figured out as well. Once again, our files had merged, so this lady's financial aid information had merged with my financial aid information, which, by the way, somehow seems like that would violate some sort of laws. I don't know what. Maybe, like, I was gonna say HIPAA, but that's medical. But yeah, so we got that straightened out, and then I had to do a lot of late paperwork and be up very late because I missed all my registration and I didn't get to do any of the stuff all the normal kids did. But it all worked out in the end, but I literally did get kicked out of school. I literally had to go park my car on, like, a side road to get it off, and I had to go tell the dean that I was packing and out by 12. Like, I had to check in with her and let her know that I would be out, and then thankfully everything got fixed, so I didn't actually get kicked out, but, I mean, I did, but I didn't. You know what I mean. Anyways, so the question today I have for you guys is, have you started school yet? If so, is it going well? What grade are you in? Or what, like, are you in middle school, high school, college? What are your plans with school? Let me know down in the comments, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!